The majority of the rescues that we've been involved with over the summer have predominantly been related to jet skis or small pleasure craft that have encountered mechanical problems, and they've either drifted dangerously close to rocks, or or they've been unaccounted for. So those have been the main ones. In terms of safety issues, the biggest one that we had in terms of concern related to a group of young teenagers who, despite warnings from our beach patrol officers at the time, this was back in July, they went diving off Blackstrap Cove, commonly known as Miami Beach, and within a few hours, as we had predicted, the easterly swell had developed to a point that they could no longer swim outwards or back on land, and obviously we had to turn up. It was difficult getting to them. We had to deploy a small tender rib from our large vessel. One of our officers had to jump into the sea to help them out, and then we had to travel all the way back from Sandy Bay to Eastern Beach into a small inlet to be able to place them back on land and reunite them with parents.
Do you feel people are aware of the risks surrounding the sea, or is it something we take for granted perhaps in Gibraltar?
That is always a possibility, which is why we strongly, when we went out together with our agency counterparts at the Ports and Maritime Administration at the beginning of the summer, because it coincided with the arrival of the summer period, increased usage. We also had the inauguration of the marina. Undoubtedly, you're always going to get new users with new pleasure craft, as we do on our roads with young learner drivers every year. So it's always a good opportunity to raise awareness and learn the rules of the game. The Safety at Sea guidelines are free. There's plenty of information there. There's also legislation that has to be complied with, things like safety equipment, knowledge, and undoubtedly when you've got increased usage, accidents can happen, problems can happen. So it's just a question of being there, raising awareness, and working with multi-agency counterparts to ensure that these things are minimized.
What should you do if you find yourself or someone else in difficulty?
Well, in terms of yourself, the first thing to remain is always to remain calm. You should always be aware of changes in weather. Try and have a bit of a basic knowledge of maintenance of your vessel, basic seamanship skills. There's plenty of courses out there that you can do privately, especially your RWA courses. The first thing always is to remain calm. Think about your decisions. It's always very important that you communicate your position to the emergency services before when you call for a rescue. And like I said before, always advise in advance if you're going to be spending any time out at sea, relatives or friends, so that if you are accounted for, you may have communications problems, somebody will be able to report you sooner rather than later. If you see somebody else in distress, you need to take the decision based on what those circumstances are. Are you in a position where you can physically assist without putting yourself at risk? That goes, same goes for whether you're on land. And what's important is that before you do anything, even if you think you can or can't, always contact the emergency services first with your location, approximate position, the nature of the incident, and then if you are in a position to render aid, whether it's to a swimmer, somebody who's struggling at sea, or maybe in counseling, perhaps you can attach a tow line if that's what they need, then you can act accordingly based on your decision.